What do you say we kick this thing off?
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, welcome to the Origin Community Call. This week will be mostly about OUSD engineering, but we had a great week last week with the Paris Hilton NFT drop on Origin Story. Of course, that is now open to everyone. You can check it out at story.xyz. And on today's agenda, I think we will check in on several engineering projects, such as the OUSD harvest upgrades. We've got the on-chain governance project, and then Daniel's dripper contract that he's been playing around with. And then we'll also talk about our upcoming audit with Solidified. And also, there's a small update that we're making to our weekly governance vote for the OUSD strategy allocations. But let's start with any announcements or anything that we should flag from last week. Anything come to mind for anyone? There's one thing that I wanted to ask the community. I started tuning into a couple of other community calls, and I was just wondering if there were any that you all listen to on a regular basis, or that you think do a good job, or just any projects that you think we should be aware of, or teams that we should become acquainted with. So if you think of something, chime in now here if you want, or you can, of course, find us in Discord at originprotocol.com/Discord, and we'd love to know what other projects we should pay attention to. Let me find my place in the notes, which I should link in Discord if I haven't already. Let's start with some sprint projects. We're wrapping up a 2-week sprint on Wednesday. And I don't think I see Doman here yet, but Daniel, can you maybe give us a quick update on the harvest upgrades? I think you've merged all of his pull requests, or most of them, and deployment is in progress.
Yes, exactly. So I've started the deployment process, and they should be going live once they come out of the time lock later today, or not, toward the end of this week. But the deployments are, we're good to be deploying.
Cool. If there aren't any questions about that, then maybe Tom, you want to give us an update on the on-chain governance project you've been working on?
Yeah, I've mainly been working on the UI this week. It's coming along nicely. I should have a demo next week. The Open Zeppelin released their new contracts, which includes the extension of the voting time if someone votes a proposal through at the last minute, which is cool. So I upgraded that and included that in the contracts. We've still got some things to work out with the vote locking mechanics, but I've mainly been focusing on the UI at the moment. All the new stuff is compound compatible, so for the most part, I can flesh out the UI using our existing governance, and it will transfer over to the new one, which is cool. So next week, demo.
Nice. We'll look forward to it. Anything you need from us? Anything we can do to help you?
Not at this stage. Just any further thoughts about the vote locking mechanics would be appreciated.
All right. Anybody have comments or questions for Tom?
I think there was a governance attack going around on Twitter this morning. Interesting to read up and look at how that went down, but it sounded like they disabled all notifications, bought up all the available tokens, and then did it. So I'm not sure whether it was insider or not.
Do you know which project it was?
Build or something like that?
Build. I'll have a look for it.
All right, let's talk for a minute about what comes next for our upcoming sprint. So, Daniel, you've got your dripper project. We'll get into that a little bit later. And then I think Doman is planning to set up IPFS deployments for the DApp, and I think maybe automated deployments at the same time. It looks like there were a couple questions here. Josh, were those from you or from Doman?
Yeah, I threw those in. Just a couple tactical questions. Do we want to use OUSD.eth? And then obviously that means we'll have to have a manual step. But I think that's sort of the obvious one that we'd use. And then the other question is like, do we want to, default to the IPFS hosted version, like send people, to that, or just have it as an option? I don't have a strong opinion on that at this point, but curious what people think.
Would that have like uptime consequences or performance implications?
Presumably, we'd send people to one of the public gateways, Cloudflare or Pinata or IPFSs. We could also run our own, which we've done in the past. I'm not sure how reliable different gateways are. I think from a resilience standpoint, it's good to get people used to using the IPFS version, getting the IPFS version bookmarked. That's obviously going to be a lot more resilient to takedowns and that sort of thing.
How big is our JavaScript bundle and the static assets? Do you know, Doman? Do you have a sense? How many megabytes?
I'm not sure if Doman's here.
I don't see him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it's maybe something we can take a look at. Maybe the first step is to deploy to IPFS and have a link in the DApp, and then we can check out the performance and see if we're happy with it before we make it a primary.
That sounds very sensible. Yeah, let's do that.
Cool.
And we have a Pinata account already set up, so it might be the simplest to reuse that. I can provide that to Doman.
Thanks, Frank.
Yeah,
I'll maybe leave
great.
I'll leave a comment in the GitHub issue where he's doing this. Okay. So yeah, I think that's a priority for him this week. And then we have the layer 2 multi-chain exploration that we had Tom's survey that I think was concluded last week. And then also his implementation doc that I still haven't had a chance to look at, but I think several other people had. Should we talk about that much here? Or Tom, when do you plan on spending more time on it relative to the governance project you're doing?
I don't think I'll look at it seriously until I finish the sort of the UI and the contracts and get it up and running, sort of at least on a test net. Yeah, it's there for people to comment if they'd like. I think in terms of the results of the poll, Binance Smart Chain seems to be probably leading the pack in terms of the EVM compatible chains. And yeah, my initial approach, my initial idea about how we do this is we just deploy sort of parallel contracts on BSC that don't share yield or share anything in common with the Ethereum version.
In terms of timing, you probably wouldn't start on this in the next 2 weeks, or you think you might after having the demo version of the governance thing?
Possibly, but it'll be towards the very end of 2 weeks, so
okay,
there's a little while yet.
Okay. Well, reminder then to everyone, including me, to go read up on the doc and leave some comments. And yeah, we won't, I don't think we'll slate it as a priority for the next 2 weeks, just so that we can budget accordingly. Anybody have any? Yep.
Yeah, I think one thing is going to be important is if we're taking this approach on Binance, I'd want to understand, what are the different strategies we're going to be deploying to. Are these like straight clones of Ethereum contracts? How much TBL do we have? What APIs do we have? What are the security setups on each of these? So there's like a lot of open questions, and I think we have to think about it holistically and make sure that it's compelling on multiple fronts, right? If the yield's not there, then it's not interesting. If the security is not there, then we need to think deeply about that. So there's a lot of variables at play that we really need to understand.
Sounds good. The last thing that we had on the list as a possible priority for the next sprint was the strategy voter tools. And thanks, Daniel, for writing up that GitHub issue. My takeaway there was that this is probably not a priority for the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
But tell me if you disagree.
I agree.
Okay. Anything else come to mind that that should be an engineering priority for the immediate future? On the topic of the hey Doman, on the topic of the strategy voters and tooling that we might provide for them in the future, I think one reason why that's not as high of a priority is we've made a slight update to our weekly allocation vote, which you can see at the top of vote.originprotocol.com. We've added an option at Josh's request for voters to be able to just say, keep the existing allocation. And so the way that this will work is if you cast your vote for that, now, of course, you could weight your vote between the existing allocation and other strategies, which I wouldn't recommend. But assuming that you vote 100% for existing allocation, then at the end of the voting period each week, we'll look at the results on the right side of that page. And if the weighted result of the vote is more than 50% for existing allocation, then the strategists will take no action. Is that right, Josh? How you'd like it to work?
Yeah, that's correct. And the thinking here is a lot of times people are voting and they're trying to move stuff around when really they just want to say leave it alone. And a lot of times we need to be look, because if we're moving in and out of convex too often, we're taking a hit. It's like the negative APY that people see right now and have questions about. And so the more we can just leave funds where they are, the better. So wanted to make that easy for people to have that option.
I think it's a great improvement. And it also makes my life easier when I'm voting instead of trying to like calculate what is the current thing and make it line up. All right, so that's linked in the notes. You can go vote on that starting at, I think, 7 o'clock Eastern tonight, and it'll run for 2 days. Daniel, you want to tell us how your Dripper contract is coming along? And thanks, by the way, for doing the impromptu live, not just a coding session in Discord this week, but also just we were able to watch you think through all the different ways that it could work.
Yeah, hang on just a second and I will share my screen.
If you're not in our Discord, you definitely should be, because you never know when Daniel's going to drop some alpha or something jumping into one of those channels.
Okay, I should probably have started with a screen that shows the way our current yield works, which is we have big spikes every few days as reward tokens drop in, and that has two disadvantages. One, that most of the time when you're sitting there watching the little next rebase number for you, it barely moves for like 2 days, and then it jumps up all of a sudden, you don't even see it, and then it starts barely moving again. So this would give us a smooth, continuous increase in that next yield number. Also, this would let you, if we can have some kind of smooth APY coming in from reward token sales, then our APY page, instead of jumping between 0.02% some days and 17, 36, 50% other days, will be a much smoother climb. So our challenge really is we've got these yield that come in when we don't know, and we want to be able to give a nice smooth yield regardless. We also have yield spike events when there's a large redeem as well, which we had one today and got like $20,000 of yield from it. So this was the first plan, was what if we adjust the drip rate every time a harvest takes place? You can ignore the blue line. This was just the first one. So this is kind of like an ever-increasing APY that increases steadily and then spikes up, spikes down. This is just some test data I made for it. And this first version here, the orange line, recalculates the given APY rate every time that the dripper is giving to the contract, or sending to OUSD every time a harvest takes place. Now, in writing the code for this, some test code for this, we switched to a simpler version that instead recalculates the rate every time, every day on a rebase, or on every rebase. This makes it kind of a steady cadence to it. You kind of know what that day's APY is going to be every time the rebase happens. Now, this chart is different than the previous chart we just saw. This chart is looking at total amount of funds that have reached the contract over time. And so the blue that shifts here is an incoming changing underlying strategies APY rate from reward tokens. This green, which is really hard to see, is harvest, which this simulation is using about what I would expect from our new harvest system, where we'll get a much steadier beat in harvest, although they still are a little bit random, and some are shorter and some are longer. So here we could see like a multi-day delay in a harvest. We're actually still earning reward tokens, but the actual yield from that doesn't hit until here. Then the orange line is what you would see in the user interface in the front end on OUSD. This is how much the dripper is released. You'll notice it's actually below the how much has been earned in total, but the orange line is how much is available to be released, and is steadily climbs every single block. And then the red ticks here are at each rebase when they happen, how much funds go to the OUSD vault contract. Now, this is how I expect it will look with harvest every day or every couple days. If we go to some kind of worst case situation, and also zooming out, I don't have worst. Where did my chart go? Over here. This is with a worst case situation where we have even multi-week delays in between harvests. This is like really cranking things up to make it look bad. And so this is with the new style where it recalculates the rate on every rebase, and each one of these is a day here. And we can see that the rebases start tapering off and getting towards zero, and then they start climbing again once another one comes in. But nevertheless, even in this kind of situation, we're still massively better off than we were, because we still have this thing where rebase is coming in steadily, and we aren't having these single yield spikes. I don't actually have a diagram of how I was thinking of doing this, but basically right now we have, and I apologize if I have my push to talk button set to caps lock, so this may all come out all caps. But anyway, we have currently the strategies earn the reward tokens, and we're moving to a harvester contract that harvests and sells them which is the thing we're deploying this week. This would be adding, instead of the harvester sending directly to the OUSD contract or to the vault contract, instead it would send that yield to the dripper contract. And the dripper contract is very small and just spreads the yield out. Whenever a rebase happens, the dripper sends whatever has been acquired onto the vault. Although everything that the dripper does could fit inside the vault, this keeps the vault code as it is. There's actually not a single line of code change to the vault. The vault just has magically more money, and when a rebase is called, it has more money. So from a security point of view, this is really nice. The vault all this code stays completely outside the vault. And from a simplicity point of view, the dripper contract is extremely simple because it doesn't have to, it doesn't even care where the money comes from. The harvest sends it money. It just wakes up whenever a rebase happens, sees how much money it has, and decides on what the next rate's going to be. Let's see. Any questions so far? Okay. The two disadvantages of doing this are, one, that we miss out on, or there's a portion of yield that's staying in the dripper contract and not earning interest. This is only going to be, because it's going to be less than about a week's worth of yield. Let's say APY was 10%. And let's pretend there's 50 weeks in a year. This would be 2% of 10% of yield that's not earning interest, or principal is not earning interest. This makes a fairly small difference just because it's only 1/50th of the amount, and it's only not over the whole principal. It's still over just the amount of the yield. The second disadvantage, it gives us about a 12-hour delay on average a 12-hour delay between when a yield spike happens, like let's say they're redeemed today, and then when the actual APY starts increasing for it. I think that's also extremely minor, and you probably wouldn't even notice it. And in fact, that may be a good thing. That's kind of what we want. Yeah, that's pretty much the dripper idea. I currently have a contract coded, and some of those charts were actually generated from forked simulations of using the contract.
So because Frank, go ahead.
Just wanted to ask Daniel, so right now the parameters that you're thinking using is to smooth out over a period of 7 days? Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay. Go ahead, Micah.
Thinking about the way this worked before our harvest upgrades. If you wanted to exit OUSD, assuming it's I think that it didn't matter the amount, actually. You call redeem, and it would, the entire protocol would collect, it would harvest all of the rewards, and you would participate in that yield upon exit, basically. We're changing the way harvest works, but aside from that, in this case, the yield is time shifted into the future. So if you exit, you're not getting some of the yield that your collateral earned.
Yes. Now, before we rebased on a redeem, but we did not sell reward tokens on a redeem because that would have made it even much more pricey. We only allocated and collected reward tokens on big mints to make redeems simpler. I don't think it was doing that.
Gotcha.
And also, I think I just misspoke in that, or was wrong, in that the funds from a redeem actually just go straight into the vault for that redeem fee. So those would not be smoothed out. This purely smooths out reward token sales. It does not smooth out if for some reason there was a giant yield spike in curve because somebody flash loaned $50 million and paid, $500 million and pays the fees on it, that would come through immediately. This is only smoothing out our reward tokens sales, not all yield.
And so the yield from like lending on Compound or Aave or something, it doesn't behave any differently.
Correct. And that's already continuous block by block increasing.
Right. Yeah.
And just to be clear, Daniel, so the smoothing out comes from the dripper holding back funds, right? It doesn't come from the harvester only selling a portion of the reward tokens. Is that correct?
Correct. The harvest sells the reward tokens, turns it into USDT, and instead of sending that immediately to the vault, it sends it to the dripper.
I see. Have we considered smoothing out by having the harvester collect only a portion of the rewards?
Another alternative on the smoothing out side of things could be like a user interface level smooth out, basically doing this kind of calculation outside. The problem is that really just doesn't match up with what your balance would be doing, because your balance might go up because you've already got the harvested funds, and then it'd just be wrong, I guess. But we could make it so that we kind of calculate like our historic APYs. We could smooth out our historic APYs by doing this kind of calculation off blockchain if we felt like it.
Frank, I also think it'd be a lot more gas costly if we were only to harvest portion of the rewards, because we fetch them from like contracts and then swap them on Uniswap. All those things are like pretty gas intensive. So the way Daniel I think architected it, it's a lot more cheaper on the gas.
Yeah, and it would also affect the economic equation for someone calling the harvest function if they didn't get all the benefits from it.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So, Daniel, maybe in summary, how do you feel about rolling this out, or whether or not we should? I mean, are you committed to it now? It started out as sort of an idea.
I think it came out very simple in a way that won't impact any of the security of OUSD. I'm happy to write it up as a proposal. I like it. I think it will. People hate it when things behave in ways they don't expect. And so for users, this gives a nice, smooth APY page that's real, continuing the whole like theme that OUSD is always backed and things are always real. It's not just a change to the APY page. It's, that's what's really going on. And this also makes us not run into the situation where some kind of small reallocation of funds makes the APY look negative for a day or two, when the reality is it's it's earning money the whole time. So I like it, I guess. I'm going to put up what the gas costs would be, which I think are fairly minimal, and write up a fully fledged proposal on it.
Cool. And just to clarify, I think this is obvious, but just want to say it anyway. If you're looking at your wallet balance in MetaMask, it's only going to change when there's a rebase, just like it does now. Mm-hmm. And that part, nothing's really going to be different about the rebase. It's just that the amount of the rebase is going to be more predictable and more consistent over time.
Yes. So our daily rebases will be changing. The same schedule, that same whole thing works the same, but instead of getting a big rebase and then two insignificant rebases for the next 2 days and then a big one again, you'll be getting approximately the same rebases when the yields are staying approximately the same.
You're getting a moving average of the yield.
Yep.
And also, oh, sorry, go ahead, Domen. You go first.
Okay, I just wanted to say that I think it's great. It's going to be a lot less confusing to some of our community members who were, confused by the whole convex harvesting and then getting one large rebase and one large OUSD balance increase and then basically nothing for the next couple of days. I think it's going to solve that confusion. Maybe also, comparing APYs to KuCoin, which I think just takes a few recent rebases into account when calculating APY. It's not smoothed over a long period of time. So I think those APYs are going to be a lot more in sync with our APY. So another point of confusion less. So at least from those points of view, I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, great. And just to state the obvious as well, the Draper contract will be upgradable, and we'll have some parameters that can be configured, right?
Yes, it's going to be behind a proxy, upgradable, and the duration parameter is configurable. And so if we end up with a lot of money and harvest happening multiple times a day, we can crank the duration down to like 3 days or something shorter. So yeah, configurable. Similarly, if we switch into a situation where almost all of our yield is coming just every block from like Compound or Aave, and we were in a situation where there were very few harvests, we could also adjust that up. Or at that point, if the reward tokens were actually negligible, we could just route around it by changing the configuration on the harvester.
Got it. Yep. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to a proposal we can vote on.
I'll gun for that early this week.
Great work on this, Daniel. I'm very excited for it.
Thanks.
Anybody else have questions or comments for Daniel? Anybody else want a smoother yield?
I think everybody wants that, but just nobody said anything.
Yes.
You're such a smooth talker, Micah.
I think they're all trying to, they're distracted trying to make sense of the current yield situation. All right. Frank, I think you or Josh might have put the last agenda item on here about the upcoming solidified audit.
Yeah, I think to let everyone know, and Josh, please confirm, but I think we did get the solidified team to schedule an audit for us in about a month, I believe. And just wanted to go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's final yet, but we are working on it.
Got it. And so just wanted to recap with the team what we are thinking would be the scope of the audit, because I think the solidified team was asking about it at a high level.
Yeah, the governance stuff would be the first thing to take a look at, because that's major. The as a secondary at that time would be the harvester and dripper. Both of them are not touching principal, and so the risk of a loss, even if they went south, would be just a week's worth of, until we notice. So days or a week's worth of yield, which is not the full thing. So I think that's much less a priority than the governance stuff.
Got it. And then there might be also some contract on the story side that we would want the auditors to.
So I might even prioritize that over the harvester and dripper.
And Tom, what's your latest in terms of the timelines for the contract to be auditable? The governance contracts?
So a lot of it doesn't need to be audited with Zeppelin. The main thing is the vote locker contract. And yeah, a month should be about right, but I've definitely got to start making some decisions about the exact mechanics of it.
Got it. Yep. Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else to cover on that topic?
I don't think so. I mean, it seems like by the end of the sprint, we should be in a better spot for pointing Solidify to some contracts.
And Josh, did we want to go ahead and try to get on anyone else's calendar for 6 months from now or something in anticipation of needing more?
We could, and we locked in some time with Open Zeppelin
Yeah.
already. If we want to go like another quarter out and then lock in another chunk, we could do that as well.
I forgot about the Open Zeppelin part.
Yeah. It's so hard to predict exactly what we're going to need that far out.
Well, it sounds like a good start. Okay, that's everything that we had on the agenda. Interrupt me if there are any other topics that you would like to cover today. Otherwise, I was going to invite anyone who's joining us for the first time or here again from a prior week, if you want to introduce yourself or say hi or have any questions or want to tell us what we could do better, why you like Origin, why you're here, any of that. Feel free to unmute. Let us know what's going on. We will be here same time, same place next week. If you're not in Discord, you should be. originprotocol.com/Discord, and don't forget to vote on the fund allocation proposal at vote.originprotocol.com.
Yeah, and one last thing is that there's quite a few reward tokens that are unsold, and once this deploy goes through, we should be automatically selling all reward tokens, and there will be a yield event possibly toward the end of this week.
All right. Load up on OUSD. We'll see you then.
Have a good one. Ladies.
Everyone.